Chapter 9. As if we didn't have enough to worry about with frozen pipes, lack of space, and electric fences, Corey began uttering dark predictions about what we were to learn was a perpetual community problem. Mark my word, that road is going to wash out. I was able to reassure him. It wouldn't dare. The U.S. mail must go through. Yeah, who told you that? It's part of the Constitution that you swore to support when you were naturalized, remember? We both remembered. When his parents had applied for U.S. citizenship, the 3 younger children were automatically granted papers. But Corey, because of his age, had to apply separately. He put it off until I urged him to pursue it. So he went to my father, who, being an attorney, had helped other skiers from Norway, Germany, and Austria navigate the naturalization process. And just like that, Papa made him legal. This also made him legal in another sense. On his first day of school in America, Corey's teacher had taken one look at his Norwegian name, Corey, and declared it unpronounceable for American children. She wrote Corey on his registration form instead, and it stuck. From then on, Corey had been the name he used in his new country. I fortified my argument. Since we've been here, the Happy Valley Mail hasn't missed a day. There's no such thing as Happy Valley Mail, Corey said. For your information, our address is still Portland. Ufda, what did we move to the country for? I said. Yeah, I'm still wondering. Just be thankful we didn't move to that other place. How would you like it if all of your mail came stamped boring? Corey looked bored. I wouldn't even bother to open it. Whatever the Constitution may have said about mail getting through, it evidently didn't specify that the mail must get through to the right mailbox. One afternoon I was watching TV with the kids when a neighbor up the hill called, saying she had received a letter addressed to Corey. I said I'd come for it, figuring I had enough time to get up and back before dark. Just for the fun of it, I took my skis. Mrs. Sandmeyer invited me in and handed me the letter addressed to Corey. I thanked her, but unfortunately in my haste, I didn't look at the return address. Before I could get back out the door, she had coerced me into sitting down and was serving me a warm, bland-tasting beverage. She explained that coffee and tea were against her religious beliefs and her nutritional beliefs as well, both of which she explained at considerable length. All the while, she kept her hand on a well-worn book that she had picked up off a side table. One of her treasures, she explained. I kept trying to interject a word about my need to get home before dark. Finally, she picked up the book and insisted that I take it and learn about proper diet and worship. I didn't want the responsibility. Besides, carrying it under my arm would make skiing difficult. But she ignored my pleas and wrapped it in newspaper and handed it to me. By the time I was outside again, the sun was low. The bitter cold made it difficult to buckle my bindings. At last, I simply pulled the spring up over the heels of my boots. The road was well packed with snow. I was glad I'd brought my skis. But I hadn't gone far when I encountered exposed gravel. Ouch! I went sailing through the air. The landing felt like I'd fallen down 10 flights of stairs. I was assessing the damage when a glare of headlights struck me. I grabbed the book and my skis and scattered to the side of the road. Thompson's large farm truck pulled up. Hi, what you doing? I wasn't sure how much of my dilemma Arlo had seen, but there was no use explaining. I'm out for a little ski. Getting kind of dark, isn't it? Yeah, but if I hurry, I'll make it home while I can still see. Never did much skiing myself, he confided. I believed him. I couldn't imagine him doing anything involving speed. Besides, he would consider it a great waste of time. I felt I had to defend our favorite sport. It's fun. You ought to try it. Arlo pulled on the handbrake. Oh, I never get the time. Always got chores. Cows to milk, cows to feed and water. Course now I'm getting kind of old for that kind of thing. How old, I still hadn't been able to figure out. Our encounters had been only after dark during the ritual of hanging the milk jug on the apple tree. Yeah, it's best to start when you're young. I guess so. When I was young. His narrative was long and meritorious. He compared his virtues to the young whippersnappers in the valley. They're shiftless, won't do a lick of work, but they all got horses. Don't know figs about caring for 'em. Just race 'em up and down the roads full speed. Always breaking fence. Ending up at my house. Suppose you'll buy your kids a horse? I felt intimidated and was desperate to end the conversation. What time do you start the evening milking? I should be at it right now. But instead of releasing the brake, he settled back in his seat to tell me about it. I had visions of my red corpuscles smashing through the ice jams in my blood vessels. Doesn't it hurt the cows if they're not milked on time? Sure does. Jean's probably having a devil of a time right now. And she's not feeling good, what with her teeth. I expected that to bring action, but he obviously considered my education still lacking, so with minute details and real-life examples, he talked on until finally, he touched on the controversy sweeping the dairy industry. Artificial insemination versus the old-fashioned bull meets bossy type of behavior. As I look back, it is probably the only thing that saved me from freezing to death. I could feel the blood rising, and I floundered over my what do you knows, until at long last, Mr. Thompson casually pulled himself up, released the brake, and started to roll. I'd give you a ride down the hill, but since you're out for the exercise, I don't suppose you would want... At that moment, I would very much have wanted. I began to collect my skis and poles, and the book, darn book. But before I could climb in, he was gone, and I was left watching his taillights growing dim. It was still a long way home. It was too risky to continue down the road, so I went into the orchard. I could make out the tall, ghost-like forms of the filbert trees. I strapped on my skis and bravely pointed them downhill. The going was treacherous. I crouched into the unsightly position ski instructors frown on. Hampers your speed. That is exactly what I was after. Even at that, my speed kept going up. The low-hanging branches slapped against my face. I began thinking of all the ski injuries I'd ever heard about. Typically, they happen at the end of the day when people are tired, cold, and skiing out of control. Never, I'd been warned 1,000 times, ski through unfamiliar territory, and never alone. There is ever-present danger of avalanche, crevasse, or exposed rocks, to say nothing of mountain lions, bobcats, bears. Finally, I could see the lights of the house and the barn. I relaxed a little. Suddenly, a branch hit me hard, and in my effort to keep my balance, I dropped the book. How to stop. The trail was so narrow it was impossible to swing into a turn, so I executed the most dishonorable, shameful humiliation known in all Skidum. I dropped my rear axle. I sat down. I wanted to just sit and have a long, loud bawl, but it was so cold. I grubbed around looking for the book. From the contour of the ground, I realized that I was on the Biastock driveway. I was on the verge of asking God to strike Mrs. Sandmeyer blind. Then I wouldn't have to worry about getting the book back in one piece, when my fingers grasped the open pages. I picked it up, gathered my skis and poles, and made my way into the house. I was outraged at what I found. The kids were still watching TV, and Corey was sitting there with them. And here I'd been in the jaws of death, certain that the whole family and the Northwest Ski Patrol would be ready to go out searching for me, and they hadn't even noticed. "What were you doing out?" Corey asked casually. "I went to get a letter to you that had been left in Sandmeyer's mailbox by mistake." Corey looked interested. "Yeah? Hope it was a check." It was the first I'd thought about the letter since leaving Mrs. Sandmeyer. I remember I had it in my hand and had put it... Where?